When you're out on the water, what's your biggest fear? Drowning? Pirates? Maybe even the legendary Kraken? All valid worries for any sailor, but there's another threat you might not expect: wild animals. Sure, animals haven't figured out how to build boats yet, but that doesn't stop them from wanting to join the adventure. Here are 15 jaw-dropping moments when wild animals decided to invade people's boats. Number 15. Alligator. One of the most exciting things to see in the Sunshine State is a real-life alligator, and this Missouri couple were lucky enough to see a big gator sunning himself on the riverbank as their tourist boat cruised slowly by. Taylor Hindry was recording the trip on Facebook Live with his wife, and we hear the tour guide say, "He's going to have to ease down and push my way off this bank to get away from this dude." The guide then asks Taylor, "Can you reach out and slap him? Can't you?" Hindry says, "If I wanted to, yeah." Well, it seems the gator wasn't about to sit around waiting to be slapped by a tourist, so it decided to show just how fast it can move when it wants to and jumped right into the boat. He slithered along the deck for a while as the tourists freak out just a little bit, but pretty soon the gator made his way back into the murky water, but he gave this boatload of humans a little warning: "If I wanted, I could have eaten you all." Number 14. Anaconda. Anacondas are truly enormous snakes which live in South America. These are the world's heaviest snakes and can weigh as much as 550 pounds, with a girth of more than 30 centimeters. Enough to make your eyes water. Anyway, they are amazing swimmers and spend most of their time in the water. These monsters can eat large prey like caiman, capybara, and jaguars. The snake in this encounter was no exception, its massive body gliding through the water with an eerie grace, its dark, patterned scales blending perfectly with the murky river. The men on the boat were shouting in panic, their voices echoing across the water as they tried to figure out what to do. One of them jabbed at the snake with a stick, but it only seemed to make the anaconda more determined, its powerful coils tightening around the motor. The boat rocked dangerously as the snake's weight began to pull it lower into the water, and the men scrambled to keep their balance. One of them grabbed a machete, but hesitated, not wanting to harm the creature unless absolutely necessary. The anaconda's head surfaced briefly, its unblinking eyes fixed on the boat, and its tongue flicked out as if tasting the air. The men tried revving the motor to shake it loose, but the vibrations only seemed to agitate the snake further. Water splashed everywhere as the anaconda thrashed its tail, creating waves that made the small boat even more unstable. The tension was unbearable, with the men unsure if the snake was trying to attack them or simply curious about the strange object in its territory. They knew that one wrong move could send them all into the water, where they would be at the mercy of the massive predator. They are doing everything they possibly can to try and fend it off with a big stick. But the huge snake is not leaving them alone, swimming at speed after them. It manages to wrap itself around the boat's motor, maybe attracted to the vibrations, although swallowing one of those is probably not going to give the snake all the vitamins and minerals it really needs. Still, this is one terrifying experience. And if anyone has seen the classic horror film Anaconda, you will know that things can get pretty nasty when one of these snakes is around. Number 13. Hippo. One thing you need to know about hippos is that they are badass animals that you do not want to mess with. It's a pretty well-known fact these days that they are the most dangerous animals in Africa to humans, and these British tourists are busy asking their African guides all about the hippos and how dangerous they are. Okay, in the middle of the hippo and the water, you know? The guide is in the middle of giving his answer when a hippo decides to answer the question a little more directly by leaping through the air like some kind of chubby missile, attacking the boat and knocking all the people flying. The sheer force of the impact was enough to send the boat rocking violently, with water splashing over the sides as the tourists screamed in terror. The hippo's massive jaws snapped shut just inches away from one of the passengers, the sound like a gunshot echoing across the water. One of the tourists, clutching onto the side of the boat for dear life, shouted, "Is this normal?" while another frantically tried to grab their phone, only to drop it into the river. The guide, clearly experienced with such situations, yelled for everyone to stay calm, though his own voice betrayed a hint of panic. The hippo, meanwhile, wasn't done. It circled the boat, its nostrils flaring as it surfaced briefly before diving again, its massive bulk creating ripples that rocked the vessel. For a moment, it disappeared entirely, leaving everyone holding their breath, unsure of where it would strike next. When it finally reappeared, it charged again, this time ramming the side of the boat with enough force to crack one of the wooden planks. The tourists clung to each other, their laughter and curiosity from earlier replaced by sheer terror. In fact, one of the men was knocked into the water, but luckily he was pulled to safety by the others on the boat and no one was injured. He would not want to be stuck in the water with an angry hippo for any amount of time. These animals can bite through a human body with the same ease we would bite through a Snickers bar. The lesson here seems to be, don't talk about hippos behind their backs because they might have something they want to say about it. Number 12. Killer whale. As we mentioned earlier, killer whales are usually reluctant to attack human boats, But on this occasion, a Scottish boat off the coast of Spain found itself subject to one of these rare attacks. First, two younger killer whales started ramming the boat. Then they were joined by a larger adult, and pretty soon all of them were going at it. The sound of their bodies slamming into the hull was deafening, a deep, resonant thud that sent vibrations through the entire vessel. The crew could feel the boat lurching with every hit, and the tension in the air was palpable as they scrambled to figure out what to do. One of the sailors tried banging on the side of the boat with a metal pole, hoping the noise would scare the whales off, but it only seemed to agitate them further. The adult whale breached near the stern, its massive body rising out of the water before crashing down with a splash that drenched the deck. The rudder groaned under the strain as the whales continued to bite and twist it, and the crew could see deep gouges in the wood where their teeth had sunk in. At one point, one of the younger whales surfaced right next to the boat, its black and white head just inches away, and let out a loud, eerie exhale that sent chills down their spines. The crew debated whether to use the emergency flares to try and scare them off, but they worried it might provoke the whales even more. The boat rocked violently, and one of the sailors nearly lost his footing, grabbing onto the mast just in time to avoid being thrown overboard. They prepared the lifeboat, believing that the whales might tear a hole in the rudder, which could cause the boat to capsize. At the time of the attack, the team of 3 were about 1,100 kilometers into a trip which would last 2,600 kilometers, sailing from Spain to Scotland. The boat would literally spin through 90 degrees when the animals came in. It was as pronounced as that, he said, and the ordeal lasted 45 minutes. Maybe these whales are reminding us of all that stuff that has gone on down at SeaWorld over the years. Number 11. Rattlesnake. Well, it's not only sea creatures that end up invading people's boats, but land animals too, and some pretty scary ones. Did you know rattlesnakes could swim? Well, now you do. And they can swim pretty well too. In this crazy clip, we can see a huge rattler making its way over the surface of the water, right towards the Robinson family's boat. The kids begin to freak out, understandably. The snake's movements were eerily smooth, its body gliding across the water with an unsettling grace, and its rattling tail could be faintly heard even over the sound of the boat's engine. One of the kids yelled, "Why is it coming here?" as the snake's head bobbed closer, its tongue flicking in and out as if it were sizing up its new surroundings. The family's dog, a small terrier, started barking furiously, which only added to the chaos. The snake, undeterred by the noise, slithered up the side of the boat, its scales glinting in the sunlight as it hauled itself aboard. The kids scrambled to the far end of the boat, huddling together and screaming, while Mom shouted at Dad to do something. Dad, clearly trying to stay calm, grabbed a nearby fishing net, but the snake coiled up defensively, its head raised and ready to strike. For a moment, it seemed like a standoff, with the rattler holding its ground and the family frozen in fear. The tension was thick, and even the dog stopped barking, as if sensing the danger. Just as Dad was about to make his move, the snake suddenly turned and slithered back toward the edge of the boat, deciding it had had enough of the Robinson. As rattlers are highly venomous, "Oh my gosh, it's coming on the boat," one child screams. "Drive, drive, drive." Another boy screams to the adults, "Drive, drive, 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 now," as the snake actually gets onto the boat. Dad goes over to sort things out, standing over the snake and picking up some rope, which he said he was going to whack him with, but the rattler figures out he's not at the right party boat and makes a sharp exit. Now it's time for today's topic. On June 22, 2025, a group of tourists anchored off the coast of Turks and Caicos launched a drone to capture some stunning aerial footage of their swim near a shallow reef. Floating beside their luxury sailboat in crystal-clear turquoise water, they had no idea what was lurking just beneath the surface. When reviewing the drone footage later that evening, one tourist spotted something enormous moving just beneath them, something none of them saw while swimming. Beneath the swimmers was a colossal shark, casting a shadow as long as the sailboat itself. Marine biologists who later examined the footage estimate the creature to be at least 65 feet in length, dwarfing any known great white or whale shark. Its features suggest it may not match any known shark species currently documented. There were no aggressive movements. The massive predator simply drifted below them, silent, steady, and watching. Oceanographers are stunned, calling it possibly the most important undocumented marine sighting in years. Some speculate it could be a deep-sea species that surfaced unusually close to shore due to changes in ocean temperature or prey movement. One thing is certain, the tourists never realized just how close they were to something ancient and still alive. Number 10. Eagle ray. Back to Florida. This time, a couple of fishermen are out on a boat, hoping for a catch. Normally, fishing requires a lot of skill and patience to get a fish to take the bait. But in this case, all they had to do was sit there while a huge and beautiful eagle ray flew out of the water and landed right in their boat. The guys were taken completely by surprise, saying at first they even thought it might be a UFO. The ray flapped its massive wings wildly, sending water and slime flying everywhere, and the fishermen scrambled to avoid its sharp barb, which could deliver a potentially fatal sting. One of the men grabbed a bucket and tried to splash water on the ray to keep it alive, while the other cautiously used a fishing net to keep its tail pinned down. The sheer size of the creature was overwhelming, its body taking up nearly the entire deck of the small boat, leaving little room for the fishermen to maneuver. They could hear the heavy, wet thuds of its wings hitting the deck as it struggled, clearly distressed. The men were torn between awe at the incredible sight and fear of what might happen if they got too close. One of them joked nervously, "This is not what I signed up for when I said I wanted to catch something big." Meanwhile, the ray's dark, soulful eyes seemed to plead for help, and the fishermen knew they had to act fast. They debated whether to try and push it back into the water themselves, but the risk of getting stung was too high. Well, they did the sensitive thing and called in Mayday, which led to the Fort Myers Beach Coast Guard Station sending out a boat with some specialists who knew how to deal with the situation in a hurry. "We thought it was a spaceship. You can't prepare yourself for that. It's 1.4 meters wide and it's coming right at you," Healy told a news station. Number 9. Genta Penguin. It's those terrifying killer whales again, and this time they are chasing down a poor Genta Penguin. Like the Otter, this penguin decided it would take its chances with the humans on the boat rather than face the certain death that awaited him in the water. He jumped right into the boat, and he was safe. At least for now, because the killer whale wasn't fooled. He knew the penguin was right there on the boat. The humans on board were both thrilled and nervous, unsure of what to do with their unexpected guest. The penguin, meanwhile, was panting heavily, its tiny chest heaving as it tried to recover from the chase. One of the passengers gently poured some water near the penguin, hoping to keep it cool and hydrated, while others snapped photos of the surreal encounter. The killer whales, however, weren't giving up so easily. Their sleek black and white forms glided just beneath the surface, their dorsal fins cutting through the water like knives. Occasionally, one would breach slightly, its massive head rising out of the water as if to remind everyone who was really in charge. The tension was palpable as the penguin peeked over the edge of the boat, only to quickly retreat when it saw the pod still circling. The humans debated whether they should try to move the boat away or wait it out, not wanting to risk angering the whales. The penguin hops up onto the side of the boat to take a look, and he sees a whole pod of killer whales in the water right next to the boat. Not right now, he thinks, and he gets back into the boat. The whales seem to know not to mess with the boat, although they could probably have turned it upside down and eaten everything inside. The smarter not to mess with humans, they decide. Either way, life as a penguin ain't easy, but this little guy was in luck that day. Number 8. Sea lion. Here's a moment that will make you realize just how special the bond between humans and our mammal friends in the sea can be. This sea lion has been attacked by a predator, perhaps a shark or a killer whale, and was pretty badly injured. She was also starving as her unique injuries made it impossible to hunt. Facing certain death, she realized there was one last chance. Approach some humans and ask for help. As she swam closer, the crew on the boat noticed the deep gashes along her side, some of them still bleeding, and her labored movements in the water. It was clear she was exhausted, barely able to keep herself afloat, and her eyes seemed to plead for mercy. The moment she climbed aboard, the crew was struck by how calm she was, as if she understood they were her only hope. One of Hugo's friends grabbed a towel to gently cover her, trying to keep her warm and calm while they assessed her injuries. The sea lion, whom they later named Amber, didn't resist or lash out, even as they carefully examined her wounds. It was a heartbreaking sight, but also a testament to her trust in these strangers. The crew quickly realized they needed to act fast, as the injuries looked severe and infection was a real danger. Maybe she knew that some people were friendly, while some would have killed her for her skin or blubber. But she got lucky off the coast of California, swimming up to a boat carrying Hugo Zusco, just off Laguna Beach, Orange County. Amber swam directly for our boat and came aboard without hesitation. If she bites, there's a chance of bacteria or disease, but she was as friendly as a stray dog. She was desperate, says filmer Hugo. Hugo and his friends knew just what to do to help Amber out, and they took her straight to the Pacific Marine Mammal Center in Laguna Beach to get her the help she needed. Number 7. Dolphin. Dolphins are extremely playful animals, and they love nothing more than putting on a show for their human friends out in the wild waters of the ocean. As we can see in this clip, a few tourist boats are exploring the waters off the coast of Mexico when they encounter some friendly dolphins. The dolphins begin to leap out of the water, sometimes alone, sometimes in groups. An amazing show. The tourists were cheering and clapping, their cameras clicking away as the dolphins seemed to revel in the attention. One particularly energetic dolphin launched itself high into the air, twisting and spinning like an acrobat. But then, in a moment of misjudgment, it came down at the wrong angle and landed with a loud thud right on the deck of the boat. The sudden impact startled everyone, and for a moment, there was stunned silence as the dolphin flopped around, clearly panicked. Its sleek body was slippery and powerful, making it difficult for anyone to get close without risking injury. A few tourists backed away nervously, unsure of what to do, while others tried to snap photos of the unexpected visitor. The dolphin let out a series of high-pitched squeaks, its distress obvious, and the crew quickly realized they needed to act fast to avoid further harm to the animal, or themselves. Luckily, one dude knew just what to do. He put a wet towel on the dolphin to help it stay hydrated and calm, while calling for some other men to come and help him lift the dolphin back into the water, where all his buddies were waiting and probably laughing pretty hard in his face. Number 6. Shark. This amazing footage shows a terrifying moment when a huge shark found itself stuck on the deck of a boat off the coast of Long Island. The shark seems to be in pretty bad shape and is not too happy to be stuck on a boat with a load of people laughing at him while he struggles to get back into the water, while his face gets all torn up from the fishing hook. Sharks may be scary, but I feel a little sorry for this guy. The mako shark is stuck beneath the guardrail, and suddenly its usual supreme agility is absent without the familiar surrounding of seawater. Its powerful tail thrashed wildly, slamming against the deck and sending sprays of seawater and blood everywhere, making the scene even more chaotic. The crew, clearly nervous, kept their distance, shouting over one another about what to do next. One brave fisherman tried to grab the rope tied to its fin, but the shark snapped its jaws in his direction, reminding everyone just how dangerous it still was. The sound of its teeth clashing together was enough to send chills down their spines, a stark reminder of the predator they were dealing with. At one point, the shark managed to twist its body slightly, almost freeing itself, but the guardrail kept it pinned awkwardly. The crew knew they had to act fast, as the shark's gills were heaving, struggling to pull in oxygen, without water flowing over them. The tension was palpable as they worked together, carefully maneuvering the rope and hook to avoid any sudden attacks. It was a dangerous dance between helping the shark and keeping all their limbs intact. It turns out the hook in its mouth was the idea of the fisherman who managed to drag its head towards the water, while another fisherman was able to tie a rope around its fin with the idea of lowering it back into the water. The problem with trying to help a shark out is that even out of the water, they can turn around and bite your arm off. So eventually they get the big fish hung over the edge, and the fisherman cuts the rope, allowing him to drop back into the water. Number 5. Walrus. The Russian Navy is a pretty badass navy and considered by many to be one of the best in the world. But that's only when making comparisons to other human navies like China or the USA. What about when Russian sailors take on a huge walrus? The answer is that the walrus wins. Naval researchers aboard a tugboat near the Franz Josef Land archipelago in the Arctic found themselves under attack from the huge walrus, which was several thousand pounds of hangry, big-toothed blubber, and it managed to capsize the tug, according to Russian news reports. The attack was sudden and ferocious, with the walrus ramming the boat repeatedly, its tusks gouging deep into the hull. The crew could hear the eerie, guttural bellows of the animal as it defended its territory, a sound that would haunt even the most hardened sailors. Water began flooding the tugboat as the walrus continued its assault, showing no signs of backing down. The researchers scrambled to grab life vests and emergency supplies, all while trying to avoid the massive creature that seemed intent on sinking them. One sailor reportedly tried to scare it off by banging on the side of the boat with a metal pole, but the walrus was unfazed, its maternal instincts driving it to protect its young at all costs. The icy Arctic waters made the situation even more dangerous, as hypothermia was a real threat if anyone ended up overboard. Despite the chaos, the crew managed to stay calm, following the squad leader's orders to abandon the sinking vessel in an orderly fashion. The female, protecting her cubs, went for the boat pretty aggressively. Walruses attacked the participating boat, the research group explained. The boat sank, but the tragedy was avoided thanks to the clear actions of the squad leader. All the landing participants safely reached the shore. Apparently, the walrus came out of it unharmed. 2. Still, lesson learned. Number 4. Whale. It's one thing having a smaller animal jump onto your large boat. That might be freaky, but at least it's not going to capsize you. But what if your boat is only a one-man kayak? And what if the animal is a freaking huge humpback whale? Well, this one guy almost found out. Out on his kayak, everything seemed to be totally serene. Except, maybe for the large number of birds walking overhead, usually a sign of trouble. The water around him started to ripple in strange patterns, almost like something massive was moving just beneath the surface. He could feel the tension in the air, the kind that makes your instincts scream that something isn't right. Then came the sound, a deep, guttural whoosh of air as the whale exhaled, followed by the sudden explosion of water as it breached. For a split second, the kayak was lifted slightly, as if the ocean itself was trying to swallow it whole. The sheer size of the whale was overwhelming, its massive body glistening in the sunlight as it arced through the air. The guy could see the barnacles on its skin, each one the size of his fist, as the whale came dangerously close to flipping him over. The kayak wobbled violently, and for a moment, It seemed like he might actually end up in the whale's mouth. But somehow, miraculously, the kayak stayed upright, and the whale disappeared back into the depths with a thunderous splash. His reaction is pretty badass, whooping and hollering when most people would have probably just been screaming or calling out for a fresh pair of boxer shorts. The day I almost got swallowed by a huge whale sounds like some crazy old guy's story at a bar, but he's got the evidence right here, and it's pretty amazing. Number 3. Otter. In another example of mammal buddies turning to humans for help, here's a crazy dramatic scene in which an otter manages to escape the clutches of a killer whale by jumping onto a boat. In Halibut Cove, Alaska, John Dorneals was spending a July day out on his boat, observing the amazing marine life there. In the distance, around 200 meters away, he first sighted the otter and saw it was swimming like crazy, obviously being chased by something. As the otter got closer, John could see the sheer panic in its movements, its little body darting through the water like its life depended on it, which, of course, it did. The killer whale, sleek and massive, was cutting through the water with terrifying precision, its dorsal fins slicing the surface like a knife. For a moment, John thought the otter wouldn't make it, as the whale surged forward in a burst of speed, creating a wave that nearly swamped the tiny creature. The tension was palpable as the otter barely managed to scramble onto the transom, its wet fur slick and glistening as it panted in exhaustion. The killer whale, undeterred, circled the boat like a shadow of death, its black and white form a stark contrast against the blue water. At one point, it even nudged the boat, as if testing whether it could knock the otter back into the water. John, unsure of what to do, kept his distance from the edge, watching the drama unfold with a mix of awe and disbelief. The otter then spent a little while getting back in the water before getting back out pretty quickly again when it realized the killer whale was circling the boat, just waiting for one otter mistake. John waited a little while until the killer whale gave up, then moved on so he could release the otter back to safety. Well, as much safety as you can hope for when you live with killer whales. Number 2. Crocodiles. Saltwater crocodiles are probably the most insane predators on Earth. These monstrous reptiles are even known to have taken on and defeated great white sharks. They are also not even a little bit scared of human beings or their boats. Back in the 1960s, they were considered endangered, but since a hunting ban was enforced in 1971, their numbers have increased in Australia, especially in the sparsely populated Northern Territory. These apex predators are masters of ambush, lurking just beneath the surface of murky waters, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Their jaws can slam shut with a force of over 3,700 pounds per square inch, making escape nearly impossible once you're caught. Stories abound of fishermen losing entire catches, and sometimes their hands, when a croc decides it wants the fish more than they do. In some areas, locals have even reported crocodiles stalking them along riverbanks, watching and waiting for an opportunity. They are incredibly patient hunters, capable of staying submerged for up to an hour, which makes them nearly invisible to their prey. And while they are terrifying in the water, they can also sprint on land at surprising speeds, making them a threat in almost any environment. Now they are estimated to be as many as 200,000 of them in the wild, and they attack boats so often that it hardly even makes the news anymore, unless the attacks are fatal, and there have been plenty of those. Part of the reason is that occasional dumbasses go out and feed them chicken to show off, and the crocs soon associate human boats with food. And they don't really care whether there's actually any chicken on board or not, since a human will do just as well. These monsters can grow to more than 6 meters and weigh as much as 1,400 kilograms. If you find yourself in one's mouth, it's going to be a bad day, that's for sure. Number 1. Giant squid. I promised you the kraken, and I am giving you the kraken right now. Every sailor's nightmare is the giant squid. Forget sharks, this is the stuff real nightmares are made of. Ever since men began to sail the deep oceans too far off lands back in the 15th century, in the time since then, many legends, myths, and horrors have arisen surrounding the giant squid. The creature has been described in old sailors' tales as having eyes the size of dinner plates and a beak sharp enough to crush bone. Some accounts even claim it could pull entire ships under the waves, leaving nothing but splintered wood and terrified screams in its wake. The ocean, vast and unknowable, has always been a breeding ground for such fears, and the giant squid is the perfect embodiment of that terror. In the modern day, with cameras and technology, you'd think these creatures would lose their mystique, but seeing one in person is a different story altogether. The sheer size of it, the way its tentacles move with an alien intelligence, is enough to make even the bravest soul freeze in fear. And this one surfer finds himself going through a scene right out of H.P. Lovecraft or some other weird Japanese anime when a huge set of red tentacles wrap themselves around his board. His female companion seems to think it is the funniest thing in the world, but that squid was more than capable of wrapping itself around one of the man's limbs and quickly dragging him below the water, never to be seen again. He was pretty lucky that the squid seems to have only wanted to borrow his board. Otherwise, He could have ended up in Davy Jones' locker with all the other people who have mysteriously disappeared at sea with the sudden appearance of a terrifying and huge tentacle. The ocean is full of surprises, and sometimes the most unexpected dangers come from wildlife. Has a wild animal ever ended up on your boat? Share your wildest stories in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. And don't forget to check out more awesome videos popping up on your screen right now. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.